Okay, I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks for the Fall Y'all Fluffy Cow tier tray set. The first things first, you need to either open up the box that your kits came in so that you have something to bounce your wedge off of. I'm sure that, I think there's only one or two newbies, so you're all pretty much old pros by now. And then if you've watched any of my videos, you know how I like to do my tier tray kits. I like to do them by color. If that overwhelms you, go ahead and paint yours by piece. For me, I just like to finish one color just so I don't have to worry about like my wedges drying out or anything like that. So the first thing I did, you're gonna notice I have more pieces than you because I'm actually painting a couple tier trays at once. So I have all the pieces that have brown in them in one pile. Then I've got my yellow pile, my orange, my black, and my blue is over there. So if you're following exactly how I did it, you'll notice that like the sunflowers have 3 different colors in them. So I'm gonna start with brown on them and then go to yellow, and then I highlighted them in orange. So the first thing we're gonna do, I'm just gonna do a couple pieces and then I'll press pause and then we'll move on. So you're gonna take your baby wipe. If it is not damp, if it's dried out, then either run your hand under some water and kind of squeeze the baby wipe just to get some more water in there. You don't want it dripping wet, but it definitely needs to be damp. Or you can get like a squirt bottle and just kind of spritz it so that it has some moisture in it. And then obviously you'll be using your paint pots. But in order to get the stained look, what I'm gonna do is I will show you on this tab first. So you're gonna wanna notice which way the grain of the wood goes. It will just be a cleaner look if you follow the grain of the wood. I'm going to dip it. I'm not gonna put very much on there. Just dip it lightly in the paint and then just lightly start wiping. And what this is gonna do is instead of using the wedge, which is gonna deposit all the color on there and give you like a very solid look, this is gonna show the wood grain through. And so it's the best way that I can help you get the stained look without somehow figuring out how to send stain, which is not gonna work out in these kits. That would be a huge mess. So if it looks darker than you want it to, just take the clean end like I just did and kind of wipe very lightly, and it will pull it up and it will give it a lighter look. If after this dries, if you start thinking like, actually, I want it to be darker, wait till it dries and then just do it again and it will make it a shade darker. So the next piece I'm gonna do is actually the hair for the fluffy cow. I don't know if you can tell in my pictures, but this is actually darker. And that's because I did do a couple coats on the hair because I wanted it to have more dimension than just the 3D look, because the face of the cow is the same exact color. So I only did one coat on the face and then I did a couple coats on the hair. So then I'll set that aside. Let's do the sunflower so I can show you how I did that. I did not worry too much about staying in the lines. I felt like having it kind of go over a little bit also gave the flower more dimension, and I really like that. So I tried to stay in the line, but I did not worry too much with this. I don't know if you can see, but I'm literally just circling around, and I'm not gonna go crazy because I don't want a ton of brown to overlap, but as you can see, I did overlap, and I'm not gonna worry about it because it actually I thought it looked really cool when I was done with it. And then obviously I will move my sunflowers as I'm done into my yellow pile because that is my next. When I got to the pumpkins, I did the same thing with the stem. This stem in here, I actually did not worry about that because that is so little. So what I did on my example piece is I went ahead after I painted the pumpkins orange. When it was completely dry, I just went and got a colored pencil and just kind of colored the stem. You can do that or you can leave it, whatever you want to do. I mean, it just depends on what's gonna bug you and how detailed you really wanna be. But I did do these outer stems just because it was easy and I didn't want them to be orange. So I'm going to finish staining all the brown pieces. and then we will come back or I'm gonna push pause, and then I will come back when it's time to use the wedge for those who are newer to the kits. I forgot to mention, I did leave some of my pieces natural because I really liked the different tones of brown. So the pieces that I did not touch, I left the maple color, was the one with the crow background. I left the cow's nose, the cow's horns, I almost said antlers, the pumpkins and the hay rides cross, this background and this background. I did not put any paint on them. You can do whatever you want. You can make it more colorful. I just like to have the couple different shades of brown. I thought it looked nice and fall. Okay, I'm going to finish doing the brown, and then I will come back when we're painting the next color. Okay, the next color I'm gonna do is the yellow. Normally it wouldn't really matter what order you do your colors, but because I'm layering the colors, I like to start with the brown so that my pieces have time to dry. Then I'm gonna do yellow, and I'm gonna do my flowers first so that when those dry, I can then do orange as my last layering color, and then I'll do the black and the blue at the end. So if you are new with the wedges, what you're going to do is you're gonna get your little paint pot, and then with these little pieces, that's what these tweezers are for. You don't have to use them, it just kind of helps hold them down so that your fingers are slightly less messy. You're going to take your wedge and very lightly dip it into the paint. You don't want very much. If you try to put too much paint on right at the beginning, all these little etched lines are gonna fill with paint, and it's just not gonna look as nice. So you really wanna focus on doing multiple light layers. Generally 2 layers is more than enough. Unless if you're planning on sanding it to like really distress it, then 1 layer is enough. So what I'm gonna do is just very lightly dab up and down around the edge. And again, I'm not gonna worry too much about, normally I like really focus on staying in the lines, but with the sunflowers, I really like the ombre, kind of like, it's not really an ombre, it's just how the layers the colors kind of blend, because flowers aren't, like, they're not perfect. There's no lines. It just looks really nice when the flowers, like with the brown overlaps, the yellow kind of overlaps, it just looks really nice. And I'm only doing 1 coat. Sorry, I see a little bit that I missed. I'm only gonna do 1 layer, and then I'm gonna move this to the brown pile. Again, normally like on these pieces, I will do 2 coats for sure, but these little ones, it's fine. And oops, as you can see, if you do like very lightly bounce, you're not gonna get any color in the etched lines, and it's gonna stay nice and dark, and it's gonna look really good. Same thing with these signs. So I just put my hand in the brown paint. If this is your first time watching a video, this will happen every time. I am not a clean crafter. So dip into the paint, dab off on the side just because you want the excess off, and then very lightly dab up and down. It's really a lot of dabbing. I just turned my Netflix on or whatever, Audible, whatever you like to do. And then my watch tells me that I've hit my steps for the day. It's a cheat code. You are welcome. Okay, so as you can see, if you do really, really light coats, it's not gonna get into the lines. I'm gonna do my leaves next, just because I also highlighted them in orange. And I'm actually gonna set these aside after I do them so that I can see what they look like after they dry. I don't think on these small pieces I will need 2 coats, but once it dries, if it looks splotchy and you can see like the wood poking through, and you're not looking for that more rustic look, like if you don't plan on, I did not distress this set, and so if you're not wanting to do it as well, then you may need to do 2 coats on everything. I set that leaf in the brown paint as well. Please have a bigger work surface than I do. I have about 87 kits all around me, so I'm limited on my workspace. Okay, I am going to press pause, and I'm looking to see if there's any, I don't think there's anything special about all the other colors. You use a different wedge for each color, and it's the same process, dip, dab, and dab. So I'm going to finish painting both of these kits, and then we'll come back when it's time to highlight the sunflowers and the leaves so you can see how to do that. Okay, as soon as you're done with the yellow, when it's all dry, I mentioned this before, but you can either just throw these wedges away, or if you want to save them for your kids, I rinse mine out because I can reuse them several times before they go bad. So before it dries, if it dries out, then it's game over. But if you want to rinse them out and throw them in the craft supply for your kids, then that's an option. Okay, I'm going to show you how I did my highlights. So make sure that everything is dry. You don't want to mix paint. And I'm just going to find a clean-ish corner of this baby wipe. Again, make sure that it's still damp. If it's not, just add a little bit of water to your hand and wrap it around. I'm going to put a tiny bit of orange on my wipe, but then I'm going to wipe it onto the side of the cardboard so that there's hardly any left. And then I'm just going to very, very gently wipe along the edges. I like to start super light at first because you can always build on it, but if you do too much, the only thing you can do is either sand it off or just repaint. So it just takes longer. So I like to build versus redo. And this is just a little extra step. You don't have to do this, but I just think that it looks so cute with a little bit of extra orange. I'm using a very, very light touch. And then I did the same thing with these leaves. I just stayed on the edges of them. And then you can kind of go more into the middle when you decide if that's how you want it to look. I don't know if you can tell. So I'm going to finish all of these pieces. I'm going to completely finish painting because then all I've got left is the solid colors. There's really nothing extra about it. I'm going to be painting the orange, the black, and the blue, and then I'll come back when it's time to peel the adhesive off and put all of our pieces together. Okay, once you are completely done painting and everything is completely dry, make sure that you wash your hands. Even if the paint is dry on your hands, you can transfer it over to like a lighter color and then you'll be very upset. Okay, let's start putting one piece together at a time. So let's start with this piece. So you're going to take, just basically follow the picture. I'm going to do the head first. This adhesive backing, you can either use your fingernail to peel it off, or I'm sure you've seen me post about these really sharp tweezers. These are what I like to use. It just makes it faster. So you're going to peel the backing off, and you're not going to be able to see the adhesive, but it is super shiny and obviously you can feel it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line the edges up of his horns and his head and the ears. So you can see I'm having all of that lined up. And then, oops, I didn't like exactly how it was. Normally I put my face really close to it, but I'm trying to let you guys see. And then once you're happy with where it is, press it down, and then it is stuck. So then you're good. Now let's do the letters. Farmer's Market. I always lay them out first so I know which orientation, because sometimes on this one I don't think it is, but sometimes the S has to go a certain way, or the H's. So I just like to make sure that the etching behind it is going to be covered up. And then just one at a time, get your tweezers, go underneath it, peel that adhesive up, line it up so that it's all covered, and then press down. And then this turn. Line up the edge, and then press down. This is the really boring part. I don't really have much to say. Line it up. Sorry, I'm very particular, so I want to make sure that it's perfect. And then the leaves will go onto the sides. You want to make sure that before you press down, it is exactly where you want it to be, because once it's pressed down, it is very hard to get up without causing damage to your sewing. Okay, now I need his hair. Sorry, I should have had my pieces organized. Nose and the horns. So I'm actually going to put, I'm going to put my horns on first. Or should I do the hair first? Maybe I'll do the hair first. I'm trying to remember. I don't know what I did the first time. Maybe it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I'll do the horns first, because then I can line up the edges. And I just basically put my fingers along the edge, so I just feel that it matches up. And press. Oops. And the hair. I love this cow. I think he's so cute. Okay, and then I'm going to... Now I am actually going to make sure, I'm going to make sure that this side, there's not really that much of a gap. So as you can see, there is a gap here, and that's okay because we're putting the sunflower on that side. So I'm caring more about this side, if that makes sense. The nose, and then you will have 3 sizes of sunflower. It's the middle size that goes on your cow. And then I'm just gonna put it right there. Adorable. Okay, then let's do, I think this is pretty straightforward, so I'm not gonna do that one on video. Let's do our sign, because I wanted to show you. So you need your pole, you need the 4 signs, and then what I'm going to do first actually is put my base together, which is this rectangle and then this little rectangle, so that it can go in there and stand up. So I'm just going to kind of just eyeball it and try to get it into the middle as much as I can. So what that is going to do is, it's just a stand basically. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that you don't go all the way to the bottom, like with your signs, so that you wouldn't be able to use your stand. So this just kind of gives you an idea of the layout. You can put them in whatever order you want. I'm gonna put my bird about right there. I liked to have mine kind of going a little bit rickety. I didn't want it to be exactly straight because I feel like when you go to a corn maze, it's not very straight, you know? So now that I know about where I want my stands to be, or my signs, I'm gonna carefully take that stand off. Now you have two choices. You can do the easy thing and just peel off the entire adhesive and do it that way. But what I'm actually going to do, I'm actually just gonna do one sign at a time because that will be easier. So what's gonna happen is if you peel the whole adhesive off, it is going to be super sticky on this end, which is fine. Eventually the sticky will wear off. But you have two other choices. You can either maybe you can put scrapbook paper or whatever, and then just use like an X-Acto blade to peel it off, and that will take care of that. Or you can line up your sign where you want it to go. Let me press pause and go get a blade. Okay. This is purely optional. It is not absolutely necessary by any means. I just wanted to show you. You do have an option if you don't like the sticky, because for instance on this sign, this is going to be a little bit sticky, but that shouldn't like prohibit you from like storing it, because there's so many other layers, so it should be totally fine. With this one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use like a little craft knife and just go along where that sign is. That way when I peel it off, I'm only going to peel off this middle part. I didn't cut all the way through. Whoops. Should press a little bit harder. And then when I come back to here, let's see, my crow is about right there, so this can go up a little bit right there. So then I'm just going to position it to where it's in the sticky part and press down, and then I don't have to worry about this part being sticky. Does that make sense? So then this side we'll put like right there about, and then flip it around. This is another good reason why not to have it be perfectly straight, because that will make this part a little bit easier. I just figure whenever I go to corn mazes, they're never on straight. It's kind of part of the fun and the whimsy of it, right? And then I'm just going to right there. Oh, what did I just do? Made this more difficult than I need to. Again, if you don't have like anything sharp to do this with, or you just don't want to, then that's totally fine. It does take a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm not gonna finish this piece, so you don't have to watch me put this one on. This and the crow goes here. Let's do this wheelbarrow so I can show you what those little black straps are for. Well, I'm sure you can figure it out with the picture, but we'll put our hay barrel down first. And I just line up the edges everywhere and then press down. And then I'm gonna do the pumpkins first. This one and this one. I'm doing too many sets at once and it's getting confusing. Line up the edges and then press. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but when I first set it in place, I'm literally just setting it down so lightly so that I can still move it before I press it down. And then the largest sunflower is what's gonna kind of go in this section right there. And I guess I could have cut that, but I didn't, so it's fine. Okay, as far as the straps go, there's one that has more of an angle than the other one. So the two very flat ends, those are the bottom pieces. And then the top ends, you can see how one has more of an angle. The one with more of an angle goes on, when you're looking down, it's on the left side because it's going to follow the round of the pumpkin. So that just is kind of like a guide for where it should go. And then this one goes about where it does not go, right there. Yes, right underneath that pumpkin. So I just kind of put it as straight as you can. If I was better at editing, I should like fast forward most of this stuff, but I'm not. Okay, press. And then this one is done. I'm looking. Everything else is pretty straightforward except the tag. So let's do our tag. I will actually put my pieces on after. I'm going to show you how to do the beads. So normally you would finish this first. Okay, good. The call was coming in. I didn't know if it kicked me off. So this came with 3 sets of twine. There's going to be the thicker twine is 6 feet long, and that is for the tassel. Then you're going to have a 12-inch piece, so that's your smallest, and an 18-inch piece. So first of all, what you're going to want is the 6-foot-long thicker piece and then the smallest 12-inch. So to do your tassel, you're going to find one end of it. I like to unravel it. And what I do is I put the end a little bit past my palm, and I try to spread my fingers because I have very small hands. And then I just wrap around my hand until it's done. Since this piece is kind of like just sticking right there, what I do is I pull the circle off and I try to make them even. If I can't, which it's not going to, is it gonna work? Because I don't want like a really small piece of the tassel. Then I would just probably leave that piece long, just so that I can do this. None of that mattered. It's just because I'm very detailed and OCD. Okay, so what you're going to want is you're going to end up with a loop. So I'm going to pinch. I keep my finger here because you need an eye. You'll understand what that means in a minute. And I'm going to pinch the top. So it's like the top third or 3/4. So it's like that. As it's pinched, you're going to take this 10-inch piece and put it on this end. And you want a little tail because you are going to tie a knot. So then just very tightly wrap around a few times and make sure that you leave enough of these tail ends so that you then can tie a knot very tightly so it doesn't come undone. And then get a pen or a pencil and you're going to very carefully go through each loop so that we can make, and then I just pull on this bottom part so that I can make this top part a little bit more even. So I'm just pulling. And then while this pen is still in here, I'm gonna try to pull this noose upwards because it doesn't need to be super far down. You just need an eye. Do you see that hole? You just need it so that we can thread our tassel through. That's all that's for, or a piece of twine through. I'm going to trim these two tails just so they're not sticking out so far. I'm not going to trim right to the knot because you do not want it to come undone, just so that it's not sticking out. You can still see that I still have some of it left. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to cut all of these and then just kind of even it up. I just kind of head it down because again, this is like farmhousey, so it doesn't need to be perfect. And then you have made your tassel. So, and I was going too crazy, kind of, there we go. I really want that hole. Okay, now you're gonna take this twine and pass it through that hole and tie a knot. And I did not, oh no, I do have some. Normally you take Scotch tape. My Scotch tape is in the other room. So I'm using packing tape, which is absolutely not necessary, but you're gonna want a piece of Scotch tape. It's going to make your life much, much easier for threading things. So I'm pretending this is Scotch tape. So you want two pieces. One piece, this part, I'm going to tape to the long end of the string. Just, well, you'll see. If you watch all of this first, then you'll see why. So I'm gonna tape it. So now it's together. And then I'm going to put a piece of tape on this top piece because you're gonna be threading your beads. And when you thread your beads, all your twine wants to do is unravel, and it is super irritating. Okay, so now we are going to thread all of our beads. The first few, this is why I taped right here, because I want it to be able to slip over without unraveling. So the first few I'm gonna kind of guide down. And then after that, then I can then just do the rest of them as fast as I can. If you get beads that still have some wood, like sometimes the holes aren't super great, then just clear it out with tweezers or like a needle or something. Few more. This is another reason why having these long skinny tweezers is nice, because then sometimes it is hard to pull your twine out, and so it's nice to have that extra help. Okay, now pretend this is completely done. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push gently all these beads so that they're as close to the tassel as possible. If you don't push them to the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of gaps in your garland, and you don't really want that. So press them all to the end, and then I'm going to thread it through here. And as I actually like this on this end, I don't know if it's a right hand thing or why, but it's easier. So all these beads are pressed. This is as close to the beads as possible. And then I'm going to take this and loop around the back of it. So I'm actually in between the tag and the bead. And then I'm just going to loop through this hole. And as I start to pull this, I'm going to keep this as close to that bead as possible as I pull tight, tight, tight. Now it's not going to be perfectly tight because you do want some movement. You want it to be able to you want to be able to decorate it how you want, and you don't want it to be perfectly stiff. So there is going to be a little bit of a gap. You just don't want a huge one. And then in order to make it a knot so that it's permanent, I'm just going to do the same thing. Take what's left, go underneath in between the tag and the bead. What's left is this loop, and put the end through. Oh, and then my tape came off, and then pull tight to make a knot. Now, normally this tape stays on, so I'm gonna have to redo that because what I'm gonna do is I like to thread this up through a few more beads because it gives it just a little bit more strength, I think, stoutness. And then I'm just gonna take this end and go up through this bead, up through this bead, up through this bead. I usually only do a few. You can keep going all the way to the very end, but I'm actually just gonna trim. Make sure that you don't completely cut your garland twine. And that is it. That is how you make your tassel. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off so it doesn't get too long. If you have any questions on a specific piece, you need me to go like closer or a slower detailed walkthrough, then just let me know and I'm happy to help out.